So in this video we're going to be doing something different than just the standard driving home. It's going to be a review of the Audi S3 and a review of the Golf R, the Mark 7 Golf R that I've got in the driveway. Now, depending on how long this video is going to be, I'm either going to be uploading it in parts or just uploading it as one. So the car that I'm driving at the moment is a 2017 Audi S3. It is an S-tronic and it is the facelifted version, which means it has 310 horsepower coming from a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine. Now that's the same 2-litre 4-cylinder engine that was in the previous Audi S3 and in the previous Golf R. However, it's had 10 more horsepower extracted from it, I believe. I brought Muzz here with me today because he is the everyday passenger and he'll be able to give us a proper review of the car in his terms, which will be very basic. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the performance. Like I say, the performance of this is 310 brake horsepower coming from a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine, which results in 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. I'm not too knowledgeable on the torque figures, so I won't mention those just in case I'm horribly wrong. But like I say, 4.5 seconds from a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine is pretty damn quick, and you do certainly feel it if you drop a gear and floor it.
You do feel it, like. You definitely feel that.
Now, Muzz has been in the car a few times with me, but Muzz can give you an idea of what it's like as a passenger, how it feels as a passenger. Does it feel rapid? Does it feel lightning quick? Does it feel savage? What does it feel like?
I would definitely say it does feel rapid when you put your foot down. It doesn't feel snappy, but you do feel like you're going somewhere.
Yeah?
Instantly. Yeah, definitely. Throws you back in the seat like as the thought before.
Are you constantly in the back of the seat? Are you constantly there, or can you eventually
not right
put
now,
yourself forward?
But as soon as you put your foot down a little bit, I'm like...
So like if I drop a couple of gears now, if I drop a gear at the second, then
Yeah, instantly. My head is actually touching the back of the seat, so I would say that, yeah, you do get thrown into the back of your seat quite a bit. So it does definitely feel rapid from a passenger point of view.
With this facelifted engine, you have engineered pops on the overrun. Now I've got a resonator delete, so it enhances those pops. However, even without a resonator delete, you will still get the pops and you will still get the DSG farts on the upshifts. That there sounds much better than it did in the Golf R. The Golf R sounded very plain, especially the manual. Manual had no sort of characteristics when it came to the engine sound or the exhaust sound.
Yeah.
It was pretty boring. It wasn't until we actually put an exhaust on it where you could actually hear it, and it actually brought some character and actually brought the car to life.
Yeah, in the Golf R you had to listen out for the pops, especially when it was stock. In this you can feel them as soon as you sort of, what's the word?
Let off the throttle.
Yeah, as soon as you let off the throttle in this, you can hear those pops. You can feel them as well in the car.
Yeah.
You feel them they're quite predominant.
Yeah. So if I downshift now,
yeah, you hear them straight away. So if we roll the window down a little bit.
Yeah. So if you're driving around, and like I say, I put it in the manual mode, drop the gear, so we're in first gear coming up to a 60 road. And I'll floor it now.
Yes, you definitely hear those pops.
And you get them on the overall when you let off the throttle.
Like that, yeah.
Now with this car being S-tronic, we also have launch control. Now launch control is stated at 4.5 to 60, however people have got it down to 4 seconds. So what I've done is I've set those out to get shots from the outside of the car, which I'll post in the video, and I'll set it up. So to set it up inside the car, all you do is you turn traction control off, put it into sport mode, foot firmly on the throttle, foot firmly on the brake, and then yeah, it's definitely rapid. One thing you'll notice is that I didn't do any DSG farts on the upshifts. That's because when it's doing launch control, it's cutting out all of that extra nonsense and just giving it the straight raw power. Another thing about the Audi S3 is that it shares the similar sort of platform to the Golf R. However, in the corners it doesn't feel as on rails as the Golf R did, especially when you're pushing it around the bends. In this, it feels a little bit more squirmy, it feels a little bit more front heavy, where it isn't as directed at the corners as the Golf R was. I don't know if this is just to do with the suspension setup or anything like that. Lowering the car might help that, reduce the body roll, but it does feel a little bit wallowy in the corners, makes you feel a little bit insecure when you're really pushing it on.
I would agree from a passenger side of things. Actually, I've noticed when we go around bends in the Golf R, you can pretty much just go. In this, you have to have a little more control over the car.
Yeah, I think it's also to do with the seats. Now, these are the Super Sport seats, but they don't offer as much bolstering as the Golf R does. Even their standard seats have better bolstering. Most you'll probably remember that when we get back into the Golf R, how secure they make you feel. The seats in the Golf R really do hold you into place, whereas these you can, you know, slide about a little bit more.
I think
you
they're more
feel it in the corners.
These seats are more wide body, so you feel like you've been thrown around a lot more.
Yeah.
But whereas with the Golf R, even though it was absolute savagery, you did feel that secureness in the seats itself.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like you're getting thrown about as much. And I think that might play on to the ride itself. Like I say, I'm saying that the Audi S3 feels a little bit wallowy, but it could be just due to the fact that the seats aren't really holding you into place. So with this car, you also get the mode selectors just like you do in the Golf. I believe there's a few more, however. You get dynamic, which I'm in most of the time unless I'm cruising on the way to work. You also have individual individual mode. Now individual mode is where you can customize the car to your liking. However, I have noticed that in individual mode you don't get those pops on the overrun, so I'm not too much of a fan of that. But you can customize the steering to make it a little bit more heavier or lighter depending on what you want. You also have efficiency mode, and efficiency mode basically makes the car as efficient as possible, and you instantly notice the car change its tone. So what I'll do is I'll change it to dynamic mode and start driving. So it feels a little bit more aggressive, it feels a little bit more sharp with the throttle response.
It does, yeah.
The revs also rise, so they keep them in the higher rev range, especially when you're putting your foot down. However, if you change it to efficiency mode, revs drop off and it goes into more of a cruiser. Talking about the efficiency, how efficient is the Audi S3? I've done a video on this already, and the car itself extremely efficient, especially when you want it to be. Now if you are in dynamic mode and you are dropping gears, if you are in manual mode as well, and you're running through the gears, driving hard and on the edge, then you will be in the low teens. Alright, I will say that it'd be in the low teens, around 14-15 miles per gallon. That is if you are pushing it the entire way. However, if you are on a commute to work and you're doing some spirited driving here and there, you can probably get about 23-24 miles per gallon. Now if you are trying to get as much efficiency out the car as possible, and you drop it into efficiency mode and just drive as you would any other car when you're not sort of racing around, then you can get up to the mid-30s with that, and I have came across 40 miles per gallon before. So 40 miles per gallon is completely possible in this car, whereas in the Golf it was sort of like it was sort of something that you'd never expect. You wouldn't expect it from
We were stopping at the petrol station a lot more in the Golf than what we have in this.
Yeah, it's what I've noticed. In the Golf I was stopping off at the petrol station every probably 3 to 4 days, filling the car up. However, in this, you know, the tank has lasted probably about 7 days. I don't need to fill it up every 3 to 4 days like I did the Golf. I will give the Golf its due, the fact that I did have an exhaust on it, and to hear the exhaust you had to be high RPMs, and to get the bangs had to be high RPMs, so I was sitting in that quite a lot. But still, I was filling up every 3 to 4 days in the Golf, whereas in this it's every 7 days. It also feels like the tank lasts a little bit more even when I'm in dynamic mode. It seems to have a little bit more miles per gallon. At the moment I've been driving in a mix of dynamic and efficiency over a period of 44 miles, and I've been averaging 25 miles per gallon. That there is pretty good for what the car is. What I want to talk about next is the practicality of the Audi S3. Now this model is 3-door, and this buggy right here is going to be a little bit critical of the 3-door. The reason why is because a lot of the time when we chill I have the girlfriend in the car as well, which means he has to sit in the back. In the Golf it was no problem. In the Audi S3 however, he doesn't like it so much.
It's the fact that there's not much space in the back with the 3-door. I think if it was the 5-door, there might have been that little extra space in the back, especially when the car's full. Last week we had 4 people in the car, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and my mate who was sitting in the back with me, he's quite tall, so he needs more leg room, and you know, so it did cause us to have a bit of bit of an issue in the back, especially with the seat being
so far back,
yeah. And it's as well when you're coming in and out of the car as well, with rolling the seat forward, pushing it forward, and then all that sort of struggle. Whereas with a 5-door, obviously you have your own door, you just down. I suppose if you have a hot hatch, you don't have it to fill the car, you have it to drive it. So I suppose in that aspect of things, the 3-door doesn't really have anything to do with it. But it's just if you with more than 2 people, then that's when it sort of comes into play.
Yeah, it's a little bit more tricky. Like I say though, if you got the 5-door Audi S3, it's probably perfectly fine. I got the 3-door, opted for the more sportier look, and it's caused a little bit of a problem when chilling. If I had to do it again, I'd probably get the 5-door. The final thing that I want to cover in the Audi S3 is the interior and technology. So we'll be comparing it with the interior technology of the Golf R. Now this is pretty much fully spec'd when it comes to technology wise. It has the advanced tech pack, and it also has the virtual cockpit. Virtual cockpit changes your standard dials to a sort of screen. You can customize that between the car overview, you can also switch to the radio, the mobile, and also your maps, which you can have Google Maps on as well, which really does throw it off from any other car there. It definitely makes it seem like it's in a different realm, and it's also a nice thing to show people when they're in the car. Now, compared to the Golf R was sort of limited as to what I spec'd. I didn't spec it as much as I did the Audi, as it was just on a lease and I didn't feel the need to. But inside the Golf R, I had the small screen, and the problem with the small screen, it was all touchscreen. This is the MMI system, and you can first of all hide it and display it when you want to. So if you don't like it popped up all the time, you can't hide it by just pressing a button. Most of the times I have this down anyways, unless I've got Apple CarPlay on, and press the button again and it comes up from the actual dash itself. Now the good thing about this is it isn't touchscreen, so I don't have to put my fingers all over the screen, leave fingerprints all over there. You've got the touch control down here. You have the dials which spin left and right, and you can also flick the button from the right to the left, up and down, and you can move it around as well, and you can really get shortcuts from there. That allows you to have better control of the car, so especially when you're driving the car and driving it hard and you want to change the song, you don't have to try and balance yourself when pressing the buttons. Here you just move the actual dials themselves.
And as a passenger as well, having the screen not being touchscreen, it's easier for us to be in control of it as well, especially when you're just driving. With the Golf, with the screen being touchscreen, you were sort of aiming for the right places, and half the time you weren't touching the right places because the car was moving, you know, at the same time. So it does put you in more control having these dials down here on the side.
Yeah, it also looks a little bit better as well. You, like I say, you get Google Maps, you get navigation. Now again, this is all about how you spec the car. I'm sure if you spec the Golf R up as well, you get that sort of feel. I know the 7.5, that has the virtual cockpit as well. However, I don't think you can change the screen, so I think it just gives you the standard dials and the car information overview screen. Another great thing about the technology inside of this car is the sound system. This has got the Bang & Olufsen sound system, and to be honest, I don't think I'd ever go back to a normal sound system after hearing this. This comes with a subwoofer in the boot, and it really does change the level of when you listen to music. What would you say about the sound system?
Oh shit. As someone who likes really loud music, I would say this sound system is ideal, and it's a good thing that you spec'd up to it, because it gives you a whole new dimension, as you were saying a few weeks ago, of listening to music with that intensity as well, with the subwoofer and all the speakers as well. I mean, I don't know much on the technology side of what goes into the sound system, but as an experience of listening to the music itself, it definitely draws you in, and it's enjoyable as hell. It's the clarity as well, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, we listen to a variety of music, and it handles pretty much anything you throw at it, and there's no distortion in the sound.
Yeah. If you're in the Golf R and you turn the volume all the way up, you get some distortion at the higher levels, and also the bass would sound a little bit muddy. Another thing which I noticed in the Golf R is when you did turn it all the way up, it would stop at a certain point, even though you kept on turning it all the way up. And the last thing about the interior of this, which I really think sets it off, and I thought if you're getting an Audi S3 you have to spec it, and that's the Super Sport seats. The Super Sport seats really do change the look and the feel of the car. Now I know that the base of the Super Sport seats are the same as the standard seats, there's no real difference in that. It's the upper end, you know, the backing and the headrest, etc. It does look like a bit more of a sportier car when you have that instead of just the standard seats. My brother has the Mark 6 Golf R, and his came with the Recaros, and the Recaro bucket seats, you know, again, they really set the car off from just a standard Golf and a standard A3 like the Super Sport seats do. Overall, the Audi S3 is a near perfect hot hatch. It has a bit of both. It's a real Jekyll and Hyde character. You can, like I say, put it into efficiency mode and it's just a great cruiser like it is right now. This car is in efficiency mode at the moment, and like I say, for cruising it's perfect, you know. It's a comfortable ride, it's not harsh, it's not crashy, it doesn't feel like you have to push to get anything out of it. It just runs for you, and if you're just, like I say, cruising on the way to work, or you're just coming back from work or anything like that, then yeah, set it at the efficiency and just drive with it. You've got the actual tech experience inside the car to set that apart. However, if you do want to change the car up, it's just a couple of settings down, hit the dynamic, drop a couple of gears, and it really does does transform the car within seconds. Like I say, those gear changes are absolutely instant, and like I say, the noise itself changes. I know it has some fake sounds coming into the car, but again, it really does change it. Like I say, the Audi S3 is a near perfect hot hatch. It's the best of both worlds, which is what you want when it comes to that.
I think it's a nice step up from the Golf R as well, although the two share a similar platform. I would say the S3 is a good step up for a next car if you don't want too much of a change, which is I think what you were going for, so kind of works out best.
Yeah, that's right. The Golf R is a bit more of a driver's car, whilst the Audi S3 is a bit more of a cruiser, but it has that driving ability very similar to the Golf R. Overall, a fantastic car. Now onto the Golf. We're in the Golf R. Best thing about this, no key needed, push button start. That's one point to its technology. So I need to get some petrol first of all, so that's where we'll drive to first. But on the way, what we'll discuss is the performance of the Golf R. Now, me and Muzz have just been out in it very quickly to get some exterior shots and some drive-bys, etc. But what we want to discuss is the performance and how it actually did shock us. Now, we haven't been in the car properly. I've driven it back and forth, but I haven't driven it properly for about 2 months now. And that's quite a long time to reset your memory on a car. And getting back in this instantly, I noticed that the steering is so much heavier than in the Audi. And that's a good thing in my opinion, heavy steering. It feels like you're a bit more in control of the car. It feels like you've got more feedback coming from the road, and you can actually feel every part of the car when it's moving about. And I like that in the Golf. I've always said that the Golf is more of a driver's car, and that's just proving to it. Muzz straight away recognised that the suspension itself also felt a little bit harder.
Oh, definitely. Just from driving in the street right now, you can tell it's rougher. It's the suspension itself is stiffer, even though I think it's in eco at the moment.
Yeah, it will be.
It's in eco at the moment, and it still feels stiffer than the Audi in the dynamic mode, which I suppose plays in a positive for this car because it's from a driver's point of view as well.
Yeah. Now, I don't have any sort of adaptive suspension on this, so what Muzz said there was at the bollocks.
Feck.
No, but he did raise the point that it feels a little bit more harder in the Golf than it does in the Audi. As a driver, again, that's another positive towards that, as it doesn't roll as much when you're going around corners, especially when you go around corners hard. This thing literally does grip. It has what feels like unlimited amounts of grip. It just doesn't feel like it's letting up. The Audi sometimes has that point where you think, right, I need to back off now, or it's going to go drastically wrong. With this, it feels like it's not going to let you go. We also notice the seats as well. They definitely add towards the performance factor, as they hold you into place and they really do make you feel like you're part of the car when you're driving it.
It does feel like this would be more suited for the track as well, because of the seats holding you in. And when you go around corners, like Chris just mentioned, it does feel like the car's gripping onto the road.
Yeah, it is noticeable. It is noticeable. I was saying that if I had to choose a car for daily driving, the Audi S3 would win that all the time. If I had to choose a car solely for track purposes or anything like that, I would choose the Golf R over this. Not to say that the Audi isn't built for that, because it is. It's just that the Golf R feels like it's more built for the track than the Audi is overall. Now, in relation to speed, how does it feel in comparison to the S3, Muzz? Because to me, I don't really notice too much of a difference. Like I say, there is only 10 horsepower. The only difference is now I've got a manual gearbox, so I'm changing gears manually.
Yeah.
It's up to me how quick my gear changes are. So, how would you feel in comparison they are to the S3?
To be honest, that takes me nicely into my point, because I think it is the fact that it's manual where it feels more nippy when you put your foot down.
Yeah.
Because you're changing those gears yourself and you're snapping the throttle. you're in control of it all. Whereas with the S-tronic, it's automatic essentially. So you know, it's done with the car. But with the manual, you're in control, so it feels more snappy that way.
Yeah, that's it. So if I'm in second moment, I'm going 30 mile an hour, and I'm coming up to a 60 zone any second now. And what I'll do is I'll put my foot down and go through the gears there. So that just went about the legal limit there. And you notice that when you're going quickly and you are putting your foot down and you are changing through those gears, that there's a little bit of a lag when you get the car in gear. There's a little bit of a lag before it actually kicks in the power again. So it's about half a second, but you do notice it. And that's my only criticism to this. It sort of takes you out of that whole speed, but then it throws you back into it again. I mean, when you put the foot down, it does wind the turbo up, but it's that initial gear change that sort of shuffles you back and forth, and it gives you an impression of speed. Whilst with the S3, I think that's more of just raw power in a linear fashion, where you're just sort of throwing it at the back of your seat and you feel it a little bit more. I sort of feel a little bit more in the S3 than I am in this. It feels a little bit laggy here and there.
When you put your foot down, it does feel like I'm being thrown into the seat, but not as much as it does in the S3. But when you change those gears, that's when you really feel it with the manual.
Yeah. Again, it's all the way to the driver. If you are going to be slow at shifting, it's going to really hamper on the speed. So it depends on what you want at the end of the day. It is a lot more fun with manual, mind you, especially when you're going through the gears and blipping the throttle on the downshifts. Going through the gears that way, it is a nice feeling instead of just putting your foot on the floor and letting the car do all the work that way. It is nice to have a manual gearbox every now and then, and I understand why a lot of people have their weekend cars as manual cars, because it is fun to drive. With this car being manual, it doesn't come with launch control, which the Audi does. Now, we showed you launch control in the Audi before, but what you can do is you can sort of replicate the launch with this. You turn off traction control as usual and put the clutch all the way in and push the throttle to about 3,500–4,000 revs and then let off the clutch. Now, the manual gearboxes in these cars, whilst they are good, they aren't the hardest. Now, this is the manual gearbox from technically the GTI, which hasn't been upgraded at all. So I had this car for about 2 months initially, and the gearbox actually went, the flywheel and the clutch plate, they were sort of shattered within about 2 months. What we'll do is we'll show you a quick launch now, and that'll give you an idea of what it's like. Another thing which I'd like to talk about is the sound. You'll notice that there's no upshift gear change noises like the DSG farts, and there's no sort of pops and crackles on the overrun. It's very bland, and I think that takes you out the experience again of driving a fast car. I think you always need that sound as well, so it's a bit more of a pantomime. At the moment, it feels just a little bit bland. I think if it did have a bit more of a sound like the DSGs do, then yeah, fantastic. Yeah, at the moment I'm getting about 90 miles per gallon, and that's just from filling up there. A little bit of harsh driving, but I am in race mode. It's not too bad, as I say, if you're in a car like this with 300 horsepower at your right foot. Don't be expecting anything like 40 miles per gallon every day on daily driving. But again, it's not as good as the Audi S3 when it comes to it, and that's also hampered by the 6-gear manual gearbox. The Audi has the 7 gears, which gives you a little bit better fuel efficiency when you can drop it into that higher gear. Practicality. This is Muzz's favourite because he can actually get in and out of the car without any trouble. He can also sit in the back seats without cramping.
There's a lot of room in the back. I think the 5 doors really play into it. I mean, if this was a 3-door, once again, it doesn't really take away from the car itself. It's more of a preference. The 3-door for the Golf would be tighter in the back, I think. the 5-door is spacious in the back. There's plenty of room in front of the knees, whereas in the Audi, like you saw, there was no room between the seat and the knees.
Yeah, one of our friends has a 3-door Golf R, and sitting in the back there, it is a little bit cramped, but it does have plenty more headroom. It does feel a little bit more spacious in the cabin in the Golf than it did in the Audi. I think it's just because everything feels, I don't know, it just feels a little bit more spacious, got a little bit more space to relax in. With this car, I have delivered a bed to my house, and I'm not just talking like parts of a bed, I'm talking about an entire bed. So like that's the bed frames, etc., excluding the mattress, but the bed frames, the headboard, all of that I've fit inside the entire car. I also fit inside here an entire wardrobe as well. It's still a little bit cramped, but I did it, and it just shows that this is, you know, a great practical car when it wants to be. And it's what I was saying about the Audi. It's again another Jekyll and Hyde character, but I think this is more of that. It's got more of a racing pedigree behind it. It feels a bit more ready to go than the S3 does. The S3, like I say, it feels a little bit more upper end, and it feels a little bit more luxurious when you're inside, which makes it a bit more of a better daily driver. But this year, I'd much rather have this on the track than the Audi S3. The last thing I want to go on to is the interior, the look and the design, and also the technology. Now with this, it's not exactly a highly spec'd Golf R here. It is a very basic spec. The things that I do have spec'd on this are the heated seats, fantastic for winter, but again the Audi S3 had those. The push button start, I really do like the push button start. Now whilst the seats do secure you a bit more, I do feel like they're just like any other seat in a Golf, except these have a little bit more bolstering. I don't know, I just don't think there's anything special about these. I do like the two-tone, but other than that, there's nothing that grabs me and says this is a hot hatch. You know, there's nothing wild about them. It's very subtle and subdued. The dash, the dials that I'm looking at the moment, it's not like a virtual cockpit, but they show you what you need to know. At the end of the day, that's what they do. They show you what you need to know. You do have a screen where you can go through the menus and you can see other options such as your assist systems, your audio, your telephone, your vehicle status, your lap timer, driving data, and all that sort of stuff as well. What I do like about the Golf is that a lot of things that you have to spec for the Audi come as standard with the Golf, such as the folding mirrors, which are a convenience, front and rear parking sensors, which also display the actual car on them. The Audi doesn't show you the car with the sort of visual displays. It doesn't show you that. The Golf does. Other things I like about this is also got the rear view dimming mirror, which is also a nice feature to have. There's also a hell of a lot more space inside of this car. We have things underneath our seats with its actual drawers, unlike just a drop box. You also have areas here for storage. You have areas above your head for storage, which you don't have in the Audi S3. You also have areas up front that you can slip things inside of there as well, along with cup holders like you do in the Audi S3, and also a deep storage bin in the armrest.
I would like to say, however, the armrest in the Golf is more convenient for the driver as well, because in the S3 the only space to really store your phone is the storage bin here, whereas in the Golf you can put it up front in here, or you can even slide in a cup holders if there's nothing in there. So I think that helps with the practicality as well with the Golf.
Yeah, I know that there has been times where you want to get into the phone, the passengers want to get into the phone, and have to lift up this armrest and don't driving here. It's not exactly the best thing. When up front it's a little bit easy to work with. So I do like that about the Golf R. The Golf is a little bit, it has plenty more storage and it feels a little bit more spacious, a little bit more practical, which you know you would think goes towards the whole family car look, which of course it does, but again, it's how you spec the car at the end of the day. Overall, the Golf R, getting back in this car, the Golf R does bring back a lot of fun memories. It, like I say, this thing here is an absolute weapon in the right hands. It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing at the end of the day. It's pretty subtle if you aren't a car person. If you aren't a car person, you're not going to probably recognise it, except for the 4 tailpipes at the back. But other than that, you're not going to recognise it as a hot hatch, like a hyper hatch. But yeah, this thing handles like it is on rails. At the end of the day, it all depends on what you want as a driver. If you're wanting a weekend toy, something that you're going to be taking to the track, or something that you're going to be modifying yourself, what I would do is I'd get a Golf R, get it in DSG, can handle a lot more punishment than the manual can.
Yeah.
If you're looking to get an everyday, daily driver car where you want to have power when you want it at your disposal, the Audi S3 would be the car that I'd choose over the Golf R. Even though this is a little bit more of a weapon, the Audi S3 is just as fast.
Yeah.
It's just a bit more capable.
I think at the end of the day, you're dealing with two cars that are very similar, so at the end of the day, anything that we do point out in terms of differences is just nitpicking. But I think the S3 is a bit more of an all-rounder. It's more high-end, the Golf more suited for the track.
Yeah, what I want to do is just prove like what I mean about the actual cornering.
Just right there, you can tell the car is just gripping onto the road.
Yeah.
Now, in the S3, I think you would have had to be more cautious off that turn.
Yeah. I would choose the Audi S3. If I was going to do it all over again, I'd probably spec it with 5 doors. However, in saying that, I'm going to miss this car a lot when it does go next month, because it is a fantastic car. And that's it for the review. Sorry if it's a little bit all over the place, but if you like the review, leave a like, comment, share if you want to, and subscribe. And we'll see you again later.